Dlamini-Zuma about the smart ID card that she announced during her budget speech in Parliament. We now look at other aspects of her budget speech, as well as the debate on her budget vote, late registration of babies, and has always been a problem. But in her budget address, Dr. Dlamini-Zuma could report that progress was being made.
We are happy to report that now, judging from the figures of last year, 51% of all babies that were born were registered within 30 days, which is a big... So we should be very happy about it, but also remember that there's still 49% who don't register within 30 days. And so we have to work, and we have to remind our people that actually not registering within 30 days is breaking the law. It's not just a nicety, but it's the law. So we must make sure we, as Home Affairs, meet them halfway. We have hospitals now, more than 250, that are connected to Home Affairs so that when they deliver, they can have their babies registered. Where it's not connected, we also have lots of hospitals where we have Home Affairs people who work, who assist to collect the forms and so on.
The acting chairperson of the Home Affairs Portfolio Committee, Mr. Andre Gum, said the Department of Home Affairs had indeed become an efficient, effective, and development-orientated public service. Significant progress had been made, both electronic registration services at hospitals, the issuing of passports, and the issuing of ID documents to learners.
However, of whether there is progress in service delivery comes not from annual performance reports, but from the testimony of members of the public who are at the receiving end at the coalface of Home Affairs services. My own experience in this regard is that the department's figures on significant improvement in the processing of IDs and passports and in the registration of births is that these figures tell no lies, but are substantiated by the experiences of South African citizens. People I come across from all walks of life have witnessed these improvements in their dealings with Home Affairs officers and are impressed with the provision of new offices in areas that were not serviced before, the refurbishment of many of the department's offices, and the improvement in the flow of customers as a result of the introduction of electronic queue management in larger offices.
A problem area highlighted by Mr. Gum was the hassles South Africans encounter when applying for visas. This was specifically so when applying for visas to visit the United Kingdom and some European countries.
To apply for a British visa, for example, Minister, now costs more than 1,000 rands. One has to go for an interview and you have to take along all your personal information, including bank statements for the past 6 months. They ask one during that interview whether you know anyone in Britain, and if you dare answer in the affirmative, you have to provide the British with all sorts of private information of the people you know as well. Whilst the Americans at least issue one with a 10-year visa, the British only provide a visa for a 6-month period of stay in Britain. Just imagine if all the money South Africans spend on visas could have been spent in the South African economy. These are matters we really need to look into, Minister, and see how we could assist our citizens in, at the very least, attempt to convince our foreign friends to relieve some of these requirements. If they feel they have to retain the requirement of a visa, it would, for example, help if they could reduce the costs or issue a visa for a longer period of time. If the Americans can, for example, issue a visa for 10 years, why can't Britain and the Schengen countries do the same?
The Shadow Minister for Home Affairs, Mr. Manuel de Freitas, said that the minister had indeed made a lot of improvements in a relatively short period in this portfolio. He said the minister still had some serious challenges ahead, but one area she did not have to worry about was the Independent Electoral Commission.
This is an entity which all government entities should seek to emulate, as it's devoid of any scandals and political intrigue that so many other similar bodies face. It's run professionally and efficiently, and it doesn't allow itself to be bullied by any political party, irrespective of how big or small it may be. As a result, it's respected all round, both locally and internationally, to such an extent that other countries with longer and more established democracies than ours seek the advice of our very own IEC. We can only puff our chests out with pride when talking about them. Thank you, IEC, for making South Africa proud.
One of the challenges the minister was facing was to speed up the process of applying for permanent residence permits. It was causing hardship for asylum seekers.
Almost on a daily basis, I receive heart-wrenching queries from asylum seekers who have suffered in their country of origin only to come back to our country to suffer even more because applications are not being processed speedily enough or handled correctly. As a result, we have thousands of refugees who are technically illegal in South Africa through no fault of their own, but because of this very department. I have numerous examples of people from all over Africa have been in limbo for as long as 18 months. Again, procedures and processes need to be more rapid, as many of these people are able to bring in much needed skills that we need in the development of our economy.
The challenge of refugees was also raised by Ms. Nokaya Mnisi of the ANC. She said the reality was that not all who came through South Africa's borders had honorable intentions, yet South Africa could not abdicate its international obligation and humane approach to refugees and asylum seekers.
It is exactly on those grounds we assert that there must be a comfortable balance between international interest and national interest. National interest, honorable members, is not only about security, but about development. It therefore behooves us, who are beset with a troika of challenges, namely growing unemployment, deepening poverty, and widening inequality, that we attract and accommodate skill and foreign direct investment. However, the onus of sifting the genuine from the simulated is cast on the department. The need for economic, cultural, and social development of the country that we assert must be balanced against the security needs and the integrity of our state and society.
The Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, Fatima Cohen, said South Africa remained committed to international conventions providing for the treatment of asylum seekers and refugees. She considered that there were huge challenges with regard to adjudicating the claims of asylum seekers and in extending assistance to those granted refugee status. In 2010 alone, an unprecedented 180,000 applications for asylum were received, overwhelming the system and left it open for abuse. Strategies to deal with the problem is to improve the turnaround time of applications and to deport timelessly those whose applications had failed.
Ours is to improve the processes by which the adjudication and review of claims is conducted. And already we have seen some successes in this strategy. Except for the 2 refugee centers in Pretoria, I'm pleased to report that since September 2011, the turnaround time and quality of adjudication of new applications in Durban, Musina, and Cape Town refugee reception centers have improved drastically, and status determinations are now made in these centers within 3 months. These pertain to the new applications. Of course, there are backlogs, and we'll have to then deal with those as well. Our focus is, of course, now to ensure that the Pretoria Center also achieves these standards.
We have more on the budget debate on Home Affairs after the break, and also some of the views highlighted during the health debate in Parliament. We'll be back in a moment.